Okay, Thursday, October 2nd, 2025. Just getting back from the gym. And this is going to be a new series, I guess, moving to America. You know, I have like some different, groups on YouTube or groupings of my video. I forgot what they call it, playlist. Yeah, it's a playlist. This is, me unscripted. So, yeah, I'm going to probably start the new playlist, Moving to America. You know, and this will be the first video in that playlist, and just start documenting our adventure. So we're leaving next week. Actually, we're leaving for Warsaw on the 8th, and then we're flying to Newark, New Jersey on the 10th. We land there in the evening of the 10th, and then the next day we'll go to Virginia Beach, and we'll be in Virginia Beach on the evening of the 11th. And then there's a whole lot of things to do. You know, so we have to get my wife a social security number. We have to get US phone numbers. You know, I've been really having bad luck with my US phone number here through a VoIP service called Phone 2. I used to have Skype, and that worked pretty good, but then Skype shut down. And then I switched over so I could keep the phone number. And it's costing me like, contracts and jobs and everything because they want you US based and all this thing. And then these VoIP services, I don't know, they can't handle the load, or you got to catch them on the right day, or they don't have bandwidth. You know, it's like those phone cards back in the old days, you know, those long distance phone cards. That's what these VoIP services are now at post Skype. A lot of them have popped up and none of them work good. I'm not sure like why Skype couldn't, Microsoft couldn't sell the Skype property, or it's a good brand, why they just shut it down. That I don't get. They had a lot of users still. It was in decline, but they could have sold it to somebody who had some imagination and done something with it. I think even at one time eBay owned it, so sellers and buyers could talk to each other or something. Because it has chat, it has phone, it has emojis. It's just like WhatsApp, really. It could have been like I guess Microsoft didn't want to compete with Meta on that. But anyway, so yeah, it's just doing a lot of planning, trying to find a used car. I actually, one popped up, one brand, Subaru. It seems to be just as good as Toyota, but doesn't carry the premium. So I'm kind of looking at Subarus now. But there are a lot of tricks and traps with those, like any other used car. I guess CarMax charges more, but they give you a guarantee, and they have some advantages over there, but we have to see. It's a bit nerve-wracking, the whole, adding this other layer. It's a bit harder than Belgium in some ways. In Belgium, I had the problem with the language, not speaking Dutch and French, but getting around wasn't so bad. You just didn't, you had to watch out for the poop and the pee, that was all over the place in the public transportation. But I imagine in Virginia Beach, this is like the town where the Navy SEAL Team 6 has headquarters, the Navy SEALs Group 1, which is teams 2, 4, 8, and 10 are based there. Then you have the Oceana Naval Base. So generally that town is pretty clean. You don't see homelessness and poop and pee everywhere. I mean, there's like a couple people on the ocean front, but they've been there for a long time. They're not like new homeless. I mean, they're more like just cuckoo people. They probably are collecting a pension and just hanging out on the beach. But it's nothing like what we saw in Belgium or in London. Nothing like what I'm seeing on the videos, in blue cities in America. So, yeah, and I'm going to be doing a renovation on my mom's apartment, so I'm going to probably, I got to get the GoPro set up and do time lapse. I would really like to do a time lapse on how that works. I'll do walkthroughs just like I did with the apartment in Lviv. But this is going to be a much easier renovation. Well, I mean, actually, no, it'll be the same. Maybe even, it'll be easier. There won't be as much plumbing, electrical stuff to do. you know, unless they find a real hornet's nest or something. But basically, I'm going to be gutting out my mom's apartment, you know, not to the studs. We'll leave the drywall there, but we'll just skim coat it. You know, the current walls, and I'll be doing walkthroughs when I'm there, you know, when is like textured walls. It was like a big thing in the 70s and 80s. I don't know why. I don't know why this textured thing and was such a thing. And it has popcorn ceilings. You know, it's like, it's really out of date. So the walls have to be skim coated. You know, the popcorn ceiling has to be taken off the, you know, taken down. And now there's a lot of YouTubes on how to do this yourself, and I'm contemplating that. And maybe I'll set up the GoPro and you can watch me do all that work, and we'll talk through it and make a new series. There'll be like one series where I'm just recording, you know, life, and then we'll do another playlist for the renovation. And it might go hand in hand. But I think when I did the one for the apartment, I did like some technical videos, you know, on like what the steps were, what you had to do, and then I just did like a walkthrough, walk and talk, and discuss my feelings, share my feelings with everybody. But I think we'll do something like that, because I would like to record that, because I think it's interesting for a lot of people, you know, for renovations, you know, and it's getting expensive. I mean, I checked the pricing, you know, the labor, you know, to get this kind of a skilled labor, it's really expensive. I mean, it's $2,000-3,000 a week is what it comes down to. You know, I mean, maybe the contractors include some of the materials, but probably not. I think that's just the raw labor cost. And you got to put materials, but you know, some of it's not too terribly hard. It just you got to figure out how to do it, and then it's just repetitive work. You know, scraping, brushing. You know, and I guess there's some fine details, and maybe that's where you can call the contractor to just finish up for you, and you know, just pay them a day rate, and then you know, there'd be like it's like a hybrid approach to the project. So you do all the monkey work yourself, you know, the do that after work, you know, while the baby's sleeping. Just go there and put on a jumpsuit, and, you know, and everything, and just start playing some music or Joe Rogan podcast, and just keep grinding, and you know, it slowly gets done. Now, the one thing I'm going to definitely outsource to a professional is the flooring. You know, so yeah, we have to do the walls, you know, the ceilings, and then the flooring. You know, there'll be some plumbing and electrical. Obviously, you contract that out, because believe it or not, my mom's apartment doesn't have its own laundry. So we need to put in an outlet. And now they have these combo washer and dryer units. I saw one that GE makes, and it's got pretty good reviews. It can wash and dry a load in 2 hours. Those things didn't used to work good, and it doesn't need a vent. That's another issue with in America compared to Europe. Americans love to have their dryers. Like here, we just have a washer in our apartment, and then we just line dry everything, and usually everything gets dried overnight. But in America, if you ever want to sell a place or rent a place, you have to have the dryer. I don't get it, you know, it's like uses a lot of energy. It actually ruins your clothes, you know, because you're putting all that heat, you know, and then your clothes wear out quicker. It's just line drying is better. And it's just an overnight thing, you know, and it takes about the same time to put something on the line, you know, on the laundry rack, and, you know, take it off and fold it. Now, some of these dryers, you know, do all the wrinkle free and fluff your clothes, and, you know, but I don't know. Like I said, we'll see. I mean, I gotta have it there. You know, if it's gonna work, we'll use the combo machine, and then see how that goes. So yeah, that's what's gonna be going on for next couple months. And in the meantime, I'll be like looking for a new contract. I'm not really in a hurry. You know, I just finished up with this chemical company. You know, doing project management. You know, Snowflake, SAP, Power BI, all this different stuff, you know, semi hands-on, you know, writing some queries, you know, suggesting some Python scripts, you know, because this team I was working with, you know, like we were talking about H-1Bs, right? This is a team from India, and they're supposed to be developers, and they're charging $40 an hour. That's the top line rate from the contracting firm, and none of them knew Python. They all knew SQL, and they knew how to use some tools like Informatica, but that's like $80,000 a year. You could hire American college kids out of a Big Ten school, out of one of the or out of any of the state schools, or even secondary schools. Like there's Illinois and Champaign, but then there's University of Illinois Chicago, or there's like in Virginia there's like the Old Dominion University. It's not UVA or VA Tech, but a lot of those guys could do these jobs, and these would be good first jobs for them to get familiar with a tool set and write some scripts and build some data pipelines, instead of handing this off to like a 5 years supposedly experienced guy in India. And the big issue with the workers in India, it's not that they're dumb or whatever. I think in the right environment, and I've seen it, they can excel. But their environment in India is, especially when they're working offshore, it's really demotivating. So they have to, first of all, the process to get in these companies, it's really hard. They have to take tests, do a lot of interviews. There's like 7 or 8 steps. So it's really demoralizing. And you got to ask yourself, what kind of person would put up with that stuff? Like the really smart guys, they're entrepreneurial, or they'll join a bigger firm like a US firm. So they join one of these like chop shops in India, one of these body shops, and then it's got a hierarchy. So they got like a real, butthole for a boss, yelling and shouting at them and telling yes, and we can do everything to the client. And they don't understand the limitations of their team. They don't want to invest in their team. I've so often fought these companies, telling them at least just get the guys like a double monitor, full-size keyboard, comfortable chair, because you're going to double your productivity. But the concept of productivity in India doesn't even exist. Like you go to an office in London or New York, you're going to see double monitors and real comfortable workplace, because that guy earning £100 an hour, $100 an hour, has got to put out like 10 people in India, or like 5 at least. So that's something else that they don't do over there. Everything is just about keeping the costs down. They make all these huge promises to the client, and then these guys are under pressure to do like 10 different things. Like this last company I was working at, they accepted 43 projects, in the last 6 months. And only, these are small data pipeline things, and only 9 were done and 12 were in progress with a team of 6 people. And this was all supposed to be done in like 6 months. So like 9 out of 43, it's like 20%. So they should have just accepted like the top 20% most valuable ones and then keep the rest in backlog. But that is the reality. It's like a very big difference in culture. And I've worked with American teams. It was so good, it was actually boring, because there wasn't much management you had to do. They kind of managed themselves. When I was over at the online education company, all the teams were all American. They started to work, put in Infosys and, these Indian companies and stuff, and I thought that was kind of a bad idea. I thought that was like a really not a good idea. But yeah, I thought these guys were really good, and some of them were really young, and they just get everything done, and they move the JIRA tickets themselves, they write notes. You just have to tell them something once, and they do it. And it's like, I had a team of like 3 or 4 people there, and they were doing more than this Indian team. I think it was like 6, 7, maybe as high as 8. They always have some people hiding in the background too, doing stuff, or they're working double overtime, just to, because their boss is in the background whipping them, and you never got pushback from those guys, which should make you suspicious. Like the American guys would push back and say, are you sure that's the right approach? Maybe look at this, and we have a nice debate. Sometimes it even gets hot, a hot debate, whatever. But you learn from these things. But the teams in India, they're very compliant, and it's not good for innovation, to have guys that just are, factory workers, basically, just doing repetitive tasks, because IT doesn't work that way. There's always nuance, and there's always like better ways to do things coming up. And your Indian worker in India is very single function, like they do one thing, like they'll do just Python programming, let's say, and that's all they'll do. They'll hand it off to someone else for the SQL, or they'll hand it off to someone else for the JS, whereas your like American workers are really good in 1 or 2 things, and then they know a little bit about 3 or 4 other things, and so there's not so much handing off. They can try to do almost everything, and then once they hit a wall, they can get something started, they can hand it off to the next guy. So you need smaller teams, you know, smaller cross-functional teams. And this is all like in the Agile playbook. So yeah, that's, you know, the American worker, the American IT worker is really being underestimated. They invented all of this revolution. This was all invented by Americans. You know, Apple computers and, you know, all of this tech, you know, even the silicon chips and the transistor, you know, that came before chips. This was all invented in the US. Vacuum tubes, you know, I mean, some of it probably started in Germany. I think like actually the television monitor and everything, the first evolution of that was in Germany. But I mean, the Americans industrialized it, you know. So, and we didn't have, back in those days, I mean, you had people like my dad and a couple of his friends. There were like a handful of Indians that were working their way into this, but this was all kicked off by Americans. This was all kicked off by, you know, your Anglo-Americans, you know, the guys who pull their pants up to their belly button and wear the plaid shirts and a tie and have those glasses and the spiky hair, you know. You know, those were the guys who did it, you know. Those were the guys who started this whole thing. And that has to be respected. And, you know, you know, like I said, I'm so glad they're doing something about these H-1B visas. Because, like I said, it's really meant to bring the best and the brightest, just like a professional sports team, you know, that they can recruit anywhere in the world, like this Jaromír Jágr from Czechoslovakia for hockey or whatever, and you bring that collection together in America, and then they're led by, you know, American leaders, and then they can really do something. So if you take these like top Indians from the India Institute of Technology and get them out of that environment in India and bring them to America, I mean, they run. And that's what that visa, see, I'm not against immigration, you know, like I'm actually even for refugees, but they have to be like real refugees, you know, and there's like a big difference between real refugees and just job seekers or, you know, whatever, wanderers or whatever. And, you know, I'm really for skilled immigration, not labor dumping. And as I said, the $100,000 fee for an H-1B is nothing if you're going to get an India Institute of Technology top 25% of their class graduate. You know, I mean, even if they just finish, it's an achievement. It's just an achievement to get into that school. So, I mean, I would say the H-1B should be, definitely that should be a minimum, that they attended one of those IIT schools and then they have some like experience, they have a track record. Because, I mean, obviously there's guys who are smart and they get in and then they burn out. But in general, there should be some really high standards. And then when you get one of those guys applying, the $100,000 application fee is just absolutely nothing. It's really, really, it's just I mean, compared to what they're going to give back, you know, after they're in your company for 5 years and they can apply for citizenship or convert over to green card and switch jobs, you're going to get that money back like 10 times minimum, you know. So yeah, hang on. Yeah, so yeah, that's what we're looking forward to in the US. So I'm going to be, like I said, I'll be casually looking for a new contract, focused on the renovation, focused on getting the family up and running over there. What else? I'm probably going to take some courses. I'll take some courses in Snowflake, you know, if time permits. I mean, the renovation can usually eat your head, so I'm not really planning on it. So anyway, that's all I got, and we'll see you next time.